Hello and welcome back to another Euro Fantasy video. Today we're going over our team selection for the penultimate match day for the semi-finals. Now, as you can see on the screen, it was another very poor match day for the quarterfinals for me, and ended up being the worst match day of the tournament so far with only 39 points. Now, I genuinely thought I couldn't get any worse than match day 1 after how bad that was with 45 points, and I've managed to trump that by a full 6 points, and now the quarterfinals is now the worst match day, and I've managed to drop even further in the rankings, so I'm now 296k in the world, which is very poor, but I'm still challenging for my mini leagues. I'm still like top 1, top 2, very close in my mini leagues, so that is going to be the main focus now. I think I've kind of accepted that I'm not going to be able to get a big rank that I was looking for at the start of the tournament, but yeah, that's the way things are going now. So no big punts from me going from now on. I did have a couple in this round, going for the likes of like Nico Williams as the captaincy on the first day. Obviously keeping Morata as well, he obviously never done well either. And obviously if you watched the last video as well, we're talking about how poor the strikers have done. I think I might have mentioned it in the watch along live stream as well. But still, again, the only time I've got points from my striker has been Harry Kane's goal in extra time in the round of 16. Every other time my striker hasn't scored. Again, you can see 1 point from Kane, 2 points from Mbappe, and 2 points from Morata again. And again, my only points are literally coming from the clean sheet from Koundé and the clean sheet from Diogo Costa as well. So everyone has literally massively underperformed, and we're getting 2-3 points all over the place. Unfortunately as well, Carvajal picked up a suspension. He got a very late yellow card, and I did also think that Morata picked up a late yellow as well, but it turns out that was a mistake, and he is going to be okay to play in the semis, so that's good news. Even though I still really want to get rid of him, I don't think I'm going to. I think I've got a lot of other players that need to come out, for example the Germans, Bruno Fernandes, and obviously Carvalho as well, who is suspended. So looking at the draw for the semi-finals then, these are the ones that we have got. So thankfully, in terms of team planning, all of the favourites went through, which was nice, and only a couple of players would have been eliminated from most of our teams. For myself, it was only 3 players, so that's good news. Looking at the semi-finals, thankfully the semi-finals is going to be a lot more easier to navigate because you get so many transfers for the final. Now we'll look at that in a little bit, but looking at these teams, obviously 51% only for Spain to go through and 49% for France. So we're talking about 50-50s in the quarterfinals. This is even more of a 50-50 in this round. So again, the best tactic is going to be spreading your players out and trying to get mainly we're looking at 3 players from each of the teams. Again, we'll speak about this in a little bit, but the projected final is going to be Spain versus England, but again, the odds are so close that it really could go either way. And obviously with the way games are going so far, France, for example, I think they've only conceded in 1 game as well, so it's one of those ones that could go either way. The same with Netherlands and England, so that is just something to keep in mind. Again, it doesn't really matter because we should just be spreading our players over all the different teams, so it doesn't matter who goes through, but yeah, it is always good to know who is going to be projected for the final. So looking at the clean sheet odds for this week, again, all very close, and it's really no differentiating between all 4 of the remaining teams. Spain and England are at the top with 34%, but they're literally only 3% ahead of France in third, and then only 5% ahead of Netherlands with 29%. So again, no real differentiating between those 4 teams. In terms of defenders, we are really just going to be wanting to get guys who get a lot of ball recoveries in, rather than trying to rely on the clean sheets. Now, obviously, if you do want to go for clean sheets, France and Spain is probably the game that's going to have the least amount of goals. Obviously, England as well are top on the odds, but obviously France have been very solid defensively, so that's always something to keep in mind. I definitely would be wanting at least 1 defender from each of these teams anyway, and then just double up on whichever other one you want to go for, probably one that gets ball recoveries. So yeah, I'd be looking at 1 defender at least from each of the 4 teams remaining. And then in terms of the goal scoring, now surprisingly Morata has made it into 3rd place here, which is extremely surprising, and that is the top 3, or the 3 strikers that I own in my team right now is the top 3 in terms of chances of scoring. So it's promising, but I know that is probably going to end up with 2-pointers all across the board. So yeah, Kane is top of the list at 30%, Mbappe second at 27%, Morata at 24%, and then we've got Gakpo as well, who's had a fantastic tournament and got very unlucky in the quarterfinals not to get his goal given to him. Depay in there at 18%, joint with Jude Bellingham and Kolo Muani. And then we've got the 16% in Foden, Saka and Yamal. So again, just one to keep in mind. Obviously, I wouldn't be transferring in Morata, but as someone who owns Morata, it's good to see him in at third place with a 24% chance. It's not the highest chance of scoring. I don't think any of these guys have a massive chance of scoring, because 30% is quite low. But it is good to know that these are the three most likely according to the odds. Gakpo is obviously a really, really nice shout. And then in terms of the midfielders, it's mainly your English midfielders with Bellingham, Foden and Saka with the high chances of scoring. So if you're looking for a midfielder somewhere, I'd probably be looking at the England squad. Now, obviously, as we get into the later stages, the ball recoveries become more and more important, because there isn't going to be as many goals, and we need to find points from somewhere, and players are going to be getting 4 or 5 points from ball recoveries, and these are like one of the most important chances of getting a lot of points in your team. Obviously, if maybe there's a game's 1-0, one each, only 1 or 2 players are going to be getting goals, so the other 9 players in your starting 11 likely aren't going to be getting attacking returns, so you obviously want to be getting points from elsewhere, and that's where your ball recoveries come in. So these are our top 10 players left for ball recoveries. Now, Guehi in at 37, obviously is suspended in the quarterfinals, but he is now back for the semi-finals. Now, obviously Konza had a really, really good game as well in the previous round, and with England now changing formation since Guehi was out, it's one to keep an eye on to make sure that he is going to start, because I'm personally planning to bring him into my semi-final team, but I'm going to be keeping an eye out on news as well, just in case Guehi gets left out of the team. We've obviously got Declan Rice in there as well. I think if you've already got Jude Bellingham in your team, Declan Rice would be my second pick for England midfielders, because he picks up a lot of ball recoveries as well, and I believe he picked up an assist in the last round too, so that is obviously really helpful, and he's someone who's just going to be picking up 4 or 5 points in basically every single game. So instead of going for Saka, Foden, who could get 1 or 2 points, it's good to double that with Declan Rice, who's going to get ball recoveries and potentially pick up 4 or 5. Koundé as well should be in the majority of teams, so there's not really too much to go on about him. And then we've got Rodri, who in my opinion is probably one of the best Spain midfielders to have for these rounds. He obviously can pick up assists, he can pick up goals, very, very decent chance of picking up man of the match as well, with the kind of position that he plays and what he does throughout the game. Isn't massive for ball recoveries, but he does still pick up a good few, and he would probably be one of my favourite picks for the Spain midfield. Problem with the Spain midfield is there is just so many good options. I think most of us have Nico Williams in our team. Dani Olmo as well should be coming into the lineup with Pedri out injured. Then obviously Fabian Ruiz has been a really nice pick over the tournament as well. So for me, I definitely would be considering Rodri as one of the transfers. Saliba as well, probably someone I'd pick as the second French defender if you wanted someone as well as Koundé. Then we've got Van Dijk and De Vrij, both equal on ball recoveries. De Vrij had a fantastic match in the quarterfinals, getting a goal and man of the match as well, so he could be one you could be swayed towards over Van Dijk. And then we've got Upamecano, Laporte and Cucurella as well to finish things off. So when we're planning our teams for the semi-final, obviously we need to keep the final in mind. Now, obviously we get 5 transfers for the final. Now, as you can see with the graphic, 6 players, having 6 players going through will be enough to field a starting 11 in the final, because obviously the bench doesn't matter, as only has one match, so there's no point in having a bench to transfer players in, because there's not going to be another match day. So 11 players is exactly what you need for the final. Now, obviously if you've got 6 players going through, say 3 from each team, your 5 transfers is going to be enough to be able to field that starting 11. So the way forward is literally just having 3 players from each of the 4 teams, because then you're guaranteeing yourself enough players for the final. Now, it should be pretty easy to get 3 players from each of the teams. I think most people should at least have 2 if you obviously planned in the quarterfinals properly. So for me, myself, you can see I've got 4. Well, this is what I've got with the team I'm about to show you. Is going to be 4 Spanish, 3 French, 4 English and 3 Dutch players. Now, in terms of the favourites going through to to the final, obviously that would be Spain and England, and according to the odds, that would be enough. 5 transfers would be enough to give me 7 Spanish players and 6 English players. Now, obviously, you don't need that because that is going to have like 13 players, and that's 2 extra on the bench that I don't need. So it really would give me enough to field an 11 and have 2 left over to make any switches of any other England players I want to transfer in for any other English or Spanish players, if that makes sense. So that's what would happen there. If the 2 teams that I don't think are going to make it through to the final, which would be France and Holland, I've still got 3 players each from those teams, and if those 2 were to make it into the final, I'd still be able to use my 5 transfers and have enough. So you can see down the bottom that would be 6 French players using 3 of the transfers, and then 5 Dutch players using 5 of the transfers. So the safest way forward is going to be getting 3 at least from each of the teams. I don't really think there's any reason not to, because unless you think like 5 English players are going to do really well in the semi-finals, and only maybe 1 or 2 Dutch players because you don't think Holland are going to do too well. But I don't really think it's the smartest option. I think very clearly having 3 players from each of the teams is the smartest way to go through things. So this is the semi-final team then for myself. Now, very tempted to take a -4 because obviously I'm only able to field 14 players rather than the 15 due to Carvajal's suspension. But my reasoning for not subbing it, or for not taking a -4 on the goalkeeper, is because they're really not picking up enough points, and if the keeper's not going to keep a clean sheet, I'm going to need them to make at least 6 saves to break even on the -4. So I'd need to be gambling on my goalkeeper getting a clean sheet, otherwise I'm going to lose points. So for the likes of Unai Simon, they've not kept a clean sheet in the last 2 games, and he's picked up 2 points and 2 points before that. Obviously Maignan would be the other option because they play on a different day to Pickford. He has picked up 7-7, I think 2, then 7-7, but that's because they've kept 4 clean sheets. So Maignan would really only be picking up 2 or 3 points in every other game if they hadn't kept clean sheets. So for me, I'm not willing to gamble on the fact of any of the goalkeepers, mainly obviously Spain and France keeping clean sheets. So I'm not taking the -4, and I've used my 4 transfers outfield. Now, the transfers I've made, obviously with the eliminations, Bruno Fernandes and Gundogan have came out, and I've brought in Rodri and Jude Bellingham. Now, the temptation was definitely there to bring in Dani Olmo, Declan Rice as my 2 options, but Jude Bellingham is obviously a very, very highly owned player, and I do definitely want him in my team. Now, if England are going to make it to the final, then I definitely will be looking to bring Declan Rice in for that. Now, if I had another transfer, I probably would have been pretty tempted to bring Declan Rice in, but I do feel like I need to use it to get in Jude Bellingham. Then Rodri as well, mainly just because France are so good defensively. I don't want to have 3 attacking Spain players in Morata, Nico Williams and Dani Olmo, because it's very unlikely Spain are going to score a lot of goals. So I thought I'd be a little bit safer and go for Rodri, hoping that maybe he would be the one to score the goal, which would potentially give him man of the match, and then obviously a lot of ball recoveries in there as well. Now in defence, obviously Carvajal was suspended, so he has came out, and then Rudiger as well has also been eliminated. So I've used those 2 transfers to bring in a 3rd Dutch player, just again to spread that out perfectly, because I would have only had 2. So I've brought in De Vrij over Nathan Ake, again because of the ball recoveries, and obviously De Vrij picked up a goal in the last round. Not to say that I'm expecting another one, but I'm hoping that he could potentially do it again, and that would give me the 2 Dutch centre-backs of De Vrij and Van Dijk, who obviously pick up more ball recoveries than someone like Ake. And then obviously we've got Guéhi as well, who has potentially been one of the best defenders of the tournament so far, and especially in terms of fantasy, because he's obviously picked up so many ball recoveries. So that is my team. Pretty happy with it. Again, would really like to get Morata out for someone else, but at the end of the day, he's now 3rd for goal scoring odds, and I'm not going to take a -4 to get him out again. So he is staying in the team, unfortunately, and I'm really hoping he can get his goal this time. And then for captaincies, I've split it up to a attacker and a defender. An attacker on the first day as a bit more of a risk, and going for Nico Williams. Again, no, not really hoping. Well, not I'm hoping, but I'm not really expecting a big haul from him. So the temptation to go with Rodri is definitely there as well, which I might end up doing. But for right now, I'm on Nico Williams, and then for the second day, I'm going to play it a lot safer and go for Guéhi, because I know he is going to pick up a fair amount of ball recoveries, and I should at least get an 8-point captain if Guéhi's going to pick up maybe 4 or 5 points from those ball recoveries. So going for the mainly the attacker to potentially get a big haul in the first day, and then really the safer option for the second day in Guéhi. Again, could be very tempted to go for someone like Rodri. Could even be tempted to go for maybe Koundé in the hope that France could pick up a clean sheet. But again, it's kind of up in the air. The defenders have definitely been the better captains if we are going off previous rounds from the tournament. So maybe someone like Koundé could be the smarter option if you are debating your captaincy as well. So for me, I'm probably between Nico Williams and Rodri, but I'm pretty set on going for Guéhi for the second day. That is going to round off this team selection video. It's probably the second last video of the Euros, because we've really only got a final team selection and then we are finished. So thank you to everyone who has tuned in for all the Euros videos. It has been an absolutely fantastic tournament and been really, really good for my channel as well. I've picked up so many new subscribers. So thank you all who have subscribed. Make sure to do so if you haven't already and you're enjoying these videos. Make sure to leave a like as well. And I'll see you all next week for the final team selection of the tournament. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.